Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, honored guests, and Fern Blodgett Sunde's family. We begin our celebration today with the land acknowledgement co-written with the Alderville First Nation. We respectfully acknowledge that we are located in the traditional and treaty territory of the Mississauga, Mississauga, and Chippewa Nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations, which include Curve Lake, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog Island, Rama, Beau Soleil, and Georgina Islands First Nations. We respectfully acknowledge that the Williams Treaty First Nations have been stewards and caretakers of this land and waters, and that today they remain vigilant over their health and integrity for generations to come. We are all treaty people. You will see the flags that have been placed by the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 133. The Canadian flag, the Norwegian flag provided by the Embassy, the Legion flag also. And I would ask the Sergeant-at-Arms to take the salute. Thank you. Mayor Lucas Cleveland is the 48th mayor of the town of Cobourg, and I would ask him to come forward at this time. His Honor the Mayor.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome on this blustery and can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Wonderful. On this blustery and beautiful day. It's my honor to come up here and welcome our dignitaries and our special guests. Please hold your applause till the end, and we will just sort of go through. I'd like to welcome Naval Lieutenant Chris Barker, as well as many, many members of our Canadian Armed Forces. I'd like to say thank you to Roger Litwiller, who's a naval historian who has come today. I'd like to acknowledge two past mayors of Cobourg, both John Henderson as well as Peter Delanty. And I'd like to welcome current members of our Cobourg Council, Randy Barber and Aaron Burkett, as well as our CAO Tracy Vaughn, who are all in attendance today. Prior to going through my introductory remarks, I was just recently handed a letter from the mayor of Farsund municipality in Norway, and I'd like to read that letter. Dear Mayor of Cobourg, I have been informed today that there will be a ceremony in your town in 2023 to honor a former citizen of Farsund. It is an honor for me and for our municipality that one of our citizens are now being honored in your town and your country. It may be many years later, but we are still grateful to both Canada and America for all of the help you gave our country during the periods from 1940 till 1945. We will never forget what you and your country did for our country, that it helped us through these difficult years, and therefore it is with great respect that we continue to appreciate you and remember you as you remember one of our citizens, Fern Sunde. I will also tell you that our municipality last year named a public place for Sunde, close to the harbor of Farsund, similar to the statue you have erected. Thank you so very much. Now, I would like to offer a special welcome from the town of Cobourg to the family of Fern Blodgett Sunde. Fern's daughter, Fern Sunde Sletten, and son-in-law Dag, granddaughter Ingrid, and her husband Peter, and their great-grandson Theodore. I would also like to welcome the donors and supporters of this incredible project. We welcome this opportunity to reconvene here with Fern's family members and many other members of our community who could not be here in October 2020 due to the many restrictions that were in place at that time. I welcome you to Cobourg's Meditation Garden to celebrate the life and accomplishments of Fern Blodgett Sunde. It is a fitting place indeed for this statue, created by sculptor Tyler Favell, to have been placed here overlooking Lake Ontario, as she did as a child. When Fern Blodgett looked at the lake, she recalls dreaming of working on the sea. As it is written in the history books, she pursued that dream relentlessly. We will continue to learn more about Fern's story from Leona Woods later in the program. We remain grateful for the partnership, the hard work that this committee, who took an idea of great merit in memorializing Fern through this statue and continued to see it through to fruition. And of course, the wind. I would like to thank that committee who is here in attendance, including Lieutenant Chris Parker, Petra Becker, Peter Delanty, Stanley Isherwood, Laura McCracken, Eberel, Lynn Hardy, Art Seymour, Katrina Wood, Leona Woods, in partnership with the Coburg Museum Foundation. Now, before I conclude, Fern, I would like to ask you to join me at the podium and receive this letter to the mayor, from the mayor of Farsland, Norway, Art Abserban, where Fern Blodgett Sunde lived after the war. Now, I know I didn't do that place justice. I do hope that the relationship between Coburg and Farsund can continue to flourish as we move forward. Fern, may I have you come up? Thank you very much, and this is that letter.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to see you again.
Thank you, Mayor Cleveland. His Excellency John Alvedal Fredriksson, the Norwegian ambassador, could not attend this celebration today as he is hosting the World Curling match between Norway and Canada right this minute. However, he sends his greetings and remembers with fondness the unveiling ceremony in October 2020 when we saw this statue for the first time. And the Consul General also from Toronto sends her greetings as well. An added feature of this celebration is the cadet radio station, which is set up and is transmitting in the pavilion. And Naval Lieutenant Chris Barker will give us some information, a little more detail about that. And in the insert in your program, there is an outline of that program.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for coming today for the commemoration of Fern's statue. I'd like to begin by saying thank you very much to Leona Woods and the rest of the committee members for allowing me to be a member of the committee. As a resident of Coburg, it's very proud to be able to be part of a commemoration to, as Leona says, a trailblazer who was raised here in Coburg. So thank you very much, Leona. And Leona, I know in naval terms, we always say Bravo Zulu. So Bravo Zulu, Leona. I'd also like to take this opportunity to introduce two of my colleagues who are here today. Lieutenant Navy Brian Holmes at the back, and also Sub-Lieutenant Matt Batten. He was around, yeah, he's at the back as well. They talk about Fern being a trailblazers. These two gentlemen, through the cadet, the Canadian Cadet Organization, has started up a cadet radio training program in the ham radio. And today they have, we have today a number of cadets from Port Hope Sea Cadets, Coburg Army Cadets, Coburg Air Cadets, and the Belleville Sea Cadets, all here today operating a mobile radio station over at the pavilion under the guidance of my two colleagues. So on conclusion of the ceremony here, please make sure that you get over and take a look at the radio station that's being operated, and especially the young cadets who are learning ham operation. They have learned a little bit about Fern, and they're doing their very best to carry on her legacy. So make sure that you go over and take a look at the radio station and give the kids some Bravo Zulu, as we like to say within the Navy. So once again, to Fern's family, welcome to Coburg, welcome to Canada, and enjoy the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Many of you here today know the incredible story of Fern Blodgett Sunde, and you can read the full story, well, not the full story, but certainly parts of it in the program today. So I'm just going to highlight a couple of things in the interest of keeping people warm. Fern, as has been said, came down here often, loved the beach, looked at the water, graduated from high school here in Cobourg, and then went to Toronto to work. And when the war started, she was accepted into the third school that she applied to train to be a wireless radio operator. And with great courage and resilience and devotion to duty, Fern made 78 perilous crossings of the Atlantic during World War II. And the work that she did and the subjects that she studied are also in an insert in your program on the other side of the discussion of the cadet radio. In 1943, the King of Norway awarded Fern and her husband, the captain of the Mosdale, the Norwegian War Medal, and she was the first woman to receive this honor. And Fern's daughter has brought that medal with her today, so it's quite something. Fern left the sea in 1952 to raise her two daughters in Norway, and she stayed in that country after her husband passed away. Fern Blodgett Sunde opened the door to a sisterhood of sparks, mostly Canadian and Scandinavian women. They followed her to sea. Fern was a trailblazer and a hero. She made waves, and we are pleased to be able to celebrate her achievements today with her family. The Battle of the Atlantic was the longest continuous battle in World War II and was crucial to the Allied victory. At one point in the war, ships were being lost faster than they could be replaced. Roger Litwiller, a naval historian and author, has researched and written about this part of our history for years, and we are pleased to have him speak with us today. As he said, Fern's story is the story of the Battle of the Atlantic. Roger?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to welcome the Sunde family, daughter Fern and husband Dag, granddaughter Ingrid, husband Peter, and of course Theodore, their grandson. Hi, welcome till Canada. Welcome to Canada. Today we are to celebrate an incredible individual, Fern Blodgett Sunde. Fern did not plan on becoming a trailblazer. Her story begins the same way as many of our own stories. Born in a small Canadian town. Moved to Cobourg, when she became a young adult, Fern's future was the same as many other Canadian women. She had two choices. She could stay home, get married, and raise a family, or she could go to work as a housekeeper, a nurse, or a secretary. Fern opted for work. She went to school originally to become a nurse, and then she switched over to secretarial school, and with that she found employment in Toronto as a stenographer. But looking for something more challenging, she applied to 3 different wireless schools. Finally, she was accepted. Taking courses at night, 3 days a week, she eventually graduated with her second-class wireless operator, the first woman to graduate as a wireless operator, ever. Radio was not quite the same as what we understand it today. It was not a matter of picking up a microphone and talking into it. All transmissions were done by Morse code, tapping the dots and dashes on a key. She finally graduated from that school on 12 June 1941. 4 hours after graduation, she received a phone call. There was a ship in Montreal in need of wireless operator, and she hurriedly packed, boarded a train, and off she went. She joined the ship the next day. And sailors are very much a superstitious lot. So having a woman on board is one of those great superstitions that always some sailors consider a bad omen. But having that woman join on Friday the 13th was a double dose. She joined the MS, the motor ship Mosdale. The captain of that ship was a young man, Fern Sunde. Young to be a captain of a ship, but he was an exceptional sailor, an experienced sailor, and he had been fighting this war right from the very onset. Already upset about having to wait for this woman to join his ship, he immediately ordered his ship to get underway. But within days of Mosdale leaving Montreal, Fern's story was already making headlines all across North America. And in my research, I was reading papers from as far away as Los Angeles, Florida, British Columbia, on this incredible woman who is now the first sparker to be in a merchant ship at sea. And sparker is a nickname for radio operator. Mosdale itself made 96 crossings of the Atlantic during the war. Fern was in 78 of those crossings. Mosdale was a newer ship, having just been built in 1939 before the war. She was capable of fast speeds that allowed her to travel independently and be able to outrun a surfaced U-boat temporarily. Occasionally, they would join a convoy, one in particular, HX 231, sailing from Halifax to Londonderry, was one of them. It came under a ferocious attack by 11 U-boats in the middle of the North Atlantic. During the 3-day running battle across the Atlantic, 6 of the merchant ships in that convoy, in Fern's convoy, were lost. In response, the Allied escort was able to sink 2 of the submarines. 239 merchant sailors were killed in that 3-day battle as Fern and her shipmates watched. Because of the ship's speed, they were able to travel independently, which means without the convoy. And that's not necessarily any safer, because out on the Atlantic, they were alone and the only target if a U-boat spot them. On one occasion, they were attacked by aircraft as they were approaching the United Kingdom, and on another occasion they rescued fellow merchant sailors whose ship had been torpedoed. But one incident in particular was particularly scary for the Mosdale crew. I want you to close your eyes. Think of the water that is sitting out here in front of us. And I want you to imagine you are sailing on the Atlantic. It's cold. That part you don't have to imagine. Your ship is heaving under the waves. You have started to become accustomed to the constant rolling as you haven't used the bucket you've kept beside your desk in some time. You see nothing. You are alone in a small, crowded compartment. Just the hum of the radio equipment that fills the space to keep you company. You concentrate on the quiet crackle in your headset as you listen for a radio signal. You feel the constant soothing vibration of the ship's engines, pushing your ship ever closer to Halifax, now just a day away. Suddenly, you hear the muffled yelling coming from the steel bulkhead of your radio compartment, the thumping of heavy feet running across the deck, followed by the immediate piercing sound of the ship's alarm. And the entire ship begins to vibrate as the engines surge with a burst of speed. Through the voice pipe on the bulkhead, the skipper barks out an order to you: break radio silence. Transmit in the clear. Submarine surfaced on port bow. Give our position. And you immediately start hammering on the key, SSS, the code for submarine. The 2 guns on deck begin to fire and the ship reverberates with a concussion. Your training and experience kick in. Every letter of the skipper's signal has to be sent individually in Morse code. It seems like forever to send the signal, but your expertise, it has only taken you a few minutes, few moments to transmit what may be the last message you will ever send. Now you wait. The guns have fallen silent. Mossdale's engines are working as hard as ever. There is silence on your headset. Was your message received? Is rescue coming? Suddenly there is a crackle on your headset and a series of dots and dashes come screaming through. You hastily write down the individual dots and dashes and turn to your code books to decipher the message. It's Halifax. And an RCN escort is being sent to your location. You pass the message on directly to your skipper, and he informs you the submarine dived soon after the guns opened fire on it. But you've been found. The enemy knows your location, and they know that you are alone. A sole target on the vast ocean, knowing the U-boat's radio operator, your counterpart, has just as quickly transmitted your location to every submarine in the area. The sailors in Mossdale keep a sharp lookout, the rest of the day waiting for the sudden wake of a silent torpedo about to strike their hull, or the U-boat to resurface and engage them in a gun battle on the high sea, or the saving grace of that RCN escort racing over the horizon. As the sun begins to set and dusk begins to envelop their ship, the ship's guns begin to fire again, and the skipper's voice booms through the voice pipe. Send a message, submarine spotted on the surface, and you again begin hammering away on the telegraph key. As before, the U-boat dived quickly after Mossdale's guns began to fire. But now complete and total darkness has blinded your ship. Fern described this story in one of the interviews she gave after the war. Now I'm here to talk about the Battle of Atlantic, and Fern's story is the Battle of Atlantic. Like so many merchant sailors that served during the war, civilians, all of them. Despite Gurner's reservations of having a woman on board when she first joined the ship in Montreal, the two of them were married later. The King of Norway, as already stated, decorated both of them during the war. Today we are celebrating this incredible woman with 3 generations of her family. And it is thanks to the people of Cobourg and the committee that we have this incredible statue here on Lake Ontario honoring this sailor, this woman. And her story will be told for generations. We honor her today not so much because she made history, but because she changed the future. It is because of Fern that many women in Canada and around the world have the opportunities that they have. And for that, to the family, thank you.
Thank you, Roger. That story was certainly gripping, for sure. This statue is a tribute to the veterans of the Battle of the Atlantic, as well as to Fern. And Helen Vary, a force to be reckoned with and a trailblazer in her own right, made a significant contribution to the statue and helped unveil it in 2020. She was always a supporter of veterans, of service, and education, and was a major philanthropist contributing to the causes close to her heart. She wanted to be here today, but unfortunately passed away on March the 16th. She will be missed, but her legacy is formidable. Many have passed since we last met in October 2020, and I would like to ask those that are able to please stand as we hold a minute of silence to remember the veterans of World War II specifically and all those loved ones who are with us now in spirit only. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. Thank you. Please be seated. Tyler Favell, the sculptor of this statue, intended to be here today, but he was unable to. He sent his remarks, though, and I've asked a member of the statue committee, Peter Delante, to read them.
I'm running up here not because I want to get here quickly, but I want to get warm. Well, as Leona has mentioned, Tyler wanted to be here today, but on previous commitments he is not here, but he sent a lovely, lovely letter, which I'm honored to read this morning, or this afternoon rather. I wish I could be here today to meet Fern and Gerner's family in person. But I hope these remarks, as well as the sculpture itself, will speak for me. I can only imagine the pride you feel in Fern's accomplishments. She was among Canadians of a towering generation, the men and women who fought and supported a necessary war. As an artist and as a Canadian, I wanted to express the beauty of Fern's dedication, her love of the sea, as well as her sheer bravery and trailblazing spirit. To this day, I find it hard to understand what it took for that very young woman to set foot on a ship of strangers, to make that first voyage at the height of the Battle of the Atlantic. She knew the lethal dangers faced by merchant ships. She also knew her responsibility was very serious, especially since she was the only radio operator aboard at the time. Fern was seasick all the way to England. And I'm sure there were bets going around the ship as to whether she would even make the return trip. But return she did. With the most stunning determination, Fern sailed the Mosedale until the end of the war. Referring to the statue, the wave Fern touches here symbolizes the wave of social change which came for Canadian women in the storm of war. The wave also represents radio waves, of course, and the waves of the sea as a battlefield. Finally, the waves refer to making waves. The waves Fern made by propelling her way into a profession and onto a battlefield where women were just not allowed, and by jamming a door open for a sisterhood of sparks to follow her to sea. At the unveiling, I mentioned that I wanted you, Fern's family, to know that I understood that Fern's remarkable story was a love story too. I lightly traced a wedding ring on her finger in remembrance of the young Norwegian captain who had no idea that he was hiring his future wife. Together they faced danger and hardship at sea and did everything they could to support the Allies in the fight against the Nazis. It touched my heart to hear that Fern said there was only one true love for her and that she never remarried after Gerner's death at sea. I thank you so much for sharing your parents' story and your family photos. The monument commemorates a woman who transcended social barriers to contribute to the cause of freedom. Today we remember that she was also a cherished mother, a valued member of your family. I hope this sculpture truly reminds you of her and brings you closer to that brave young woman who followed her dreams to sea. Thank you, Vern, and for your service to Canada and to Norway. And for every wave you made, thank you all so very much. Merci beaucoup. Tusen tak. Tyler Favell.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And now, since we have been talking about Norway also, I would like to ask Solveig Barber to come forward. There are, I think, 2 Norwegian speakers in Coburg. And so by having Fern's family here, we have more than doubled the Norwegian population. Solveig.
Yes, I came to Coburg 5 years ago, but I'm originally from Norway, born there. And Canada has been very kind to me, and I've been back many times to Norway. Welcome to the family of Fern Blodgett Sunde. Velkommen til Canada, og velkommen til Coburg. Det er så veldig hyggelig å ha dere her på dette flotte besøk. I'm going to sing a little song that is actually my name, Solveig's song. It's by Edvard Grieg from the play Peer Gynt. Kanskje vil der gå både vinter og vår, både vinter og vår. Og inni og det hele år, og det hele år. Men en gang vil du komme, det vet jeg visst, det vet jeg visst. Og jeg skal nok vente, for det lovte jeg sist. Det lovte jeg sist. Tusen takk.
Thank you, Solveig. We are very pleased that Fern's daughter Fern and her husband, and Fern's granddaughter Ingrid and her husband, and Fern's great-grandson Theodore could join us today. In fact, their presence set the date for this celebration, and so I would ask Fern to say a few words.
Finally, after 2.5 years, we are at a place where we were wanted to be since October the 17th, 2020. So I'm Fern, and I have together with me my husband Dag, our daughter Ingrid, her husband Petter, and their son Theodore. And we are so very pleased to be here. I also bring greetings from my sister and our son, and my sister's family, and a lot of friends and family in Norway. I know they would love to be here too, but that wasn't very possible. But we are very pleased to be here in person to see this wonderful statue here in Victoria Park in Coburg. In the Norwegian book that was written about my parents in 1954, the book is about World War II, of course. Then mother's hometown Coburg is described as an idyllic little town with about 5,000 inhabitants by the highway between Toronto and Montreal, and with daily ferry connection with Rochester. Further, it was described as a favorite holiday resort for both Canadians and Americans. And I know that the population since then has increased to about 21,000. And I've also read that Coburg has been recognized multiple times by Money Sense magazine as one of Canada's best places to live in populations under 25,000, with the nickname Ontario's feel-good town, and the motto, "Our strength is in our anonymity." So we are very pleased to be able to visit once again the town of Coburg, where my mother grew up and dreamed of going to sea. When we have been on holiday in Canada, our mother brought us to Canada several times through the years. We always had a visit or visits to Coburg. We had picnics here, right here at the beach, and we had a nice swim in the cold water. So we in Norway were used to cold water as well. We are pleased to be able today to meet some of the donors who made this statue possible. We certainly appreciate the work you have done. We are also pleased to be able to meet the members of the statue committee who pursue the idea of a statue honoring our mother and all the veterans of the Battle of the Atlantic. We know that our mother had been very proud of this recognition, and we also know that she would have liked to share it with all the other war sailors. We of course want to thank Tyler Fowell, the sculptor who did such a magnificent job creating this statue, which captures Fern and the Battle of the Atlantic so perfectly. Make Waves is really a perfect title for what Fern and the other veterans from World War II represented, and also the bravery they had. And I think it's the most beautiful statue I've ever seen. We are pleased to see the Skeena cadets and the other young people who are keeping the skills of code and ham radio communication alive. Mother kept on working at sea for some years after the war, together with our father, but settled down in Fossen when she got pregnant. Unfortunately, she lost her two first children. But then my sister, Solveign, was born in 53, sorry. And I was born just 16 months after. Our father kept on sailing as a captain, and mother stayed at home to raise her children. Sadly, our father died at sea in 1962. Although mother had several battles to fight, like raising 2 kids alone, solving economic issues, maintaining a home, being a caretaker, she lived a good life in Farsund. She had many good friends and she got help from our father's family in Farsund. When we grew older, she also worked as an English teacher at the business school. Her experience from the years at war she did not share with us children. But of course we had the book about our parents at home, so we knew the story. We accepted that it was something she had put behind and was not comfortable to talk about. But of course we thought about her as a hero and a role model. She later became a member of a local war sailor association where veterans could gather and support each other. She also had a lot of support in friends and family. In 1988, she received a local prize from the municipality. It was called the Copper Prize, that originally was given to local war heroes. It is a certificate of honor to persons who have had an impact on the local society of Farsund. And in 2022, she, as mentioned from the Major of Farsund, she got a nice place in Farsund called Fern Sunde's place. It's close to the harbor and it's a beautiful place. You can come and visit. I want to give a special thanks to Leona Woods, who has welcomed us so warmly and who has done a magnificent job both with the ceremony in 2020 and also this very special event for us today. We are so grateful. At last, I would like to say thank you to all who played a part in erecting this statue and to all who continue to visit this site, to read Fern's story and the story of the veterans of World War II. And a special thanks to those who maintain the statue and this site so that others can find peace here. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Fern. So many of these flowers, because they may not last in this weather for very long, we're going to take to the Coburg Legion, and you're all invited back for a reception where there will be tea and coffee and some light refreshments. So in closing, I would like to thank all of you for being here today, for braving this weather, although it is sunny, for honoring Fern Blodgett Sunde and the veterans of the Battle of the Atlantic. And I would like to thank the members of the Statue Committee, Christopher Barker, Petra Becker, Peter Delante, Laura McCracken-Ebrel, Lynn Hardy, Stanley Isherwood, Art Seymour, and Katrina Wood for their support and hard work over the years. A plaque listing them will be installed by the donor plaque when the weather is warmer. I remind you to visit the pavilion where the cadets are broadcasting, and I invite all of you to the Royal Canadian Legion, Branch 133 on Orr Street, and the directions are available from Peter, who has some maps, and the other committee members could tell you where it is, for a reception and an opportunity to chat with the family, and perhaps to see the medal that the King of Norway gave to Fern. I thank all those who made this statue a reality and those who contributed specifically to this event. Helen Vary for her financial support, Petra Becker and Katrina Wood for the flowers, the Coburg Museum Foundation for the bookkeeping, the Norwegian Embassy for the flags, Parks and Recreation for their work on the site, the Community Events Coordinator and Town of Coburg staff, Tom Hall for sound, Graham Beer for the taping, and Fred Govea for the digital photography. Lieutenant Matthew Batten, the Skeena Cadets and their supporters for setting up the radio station, and the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 133 for donating the banquet hall for the reception. So please, all of you, join us and Fern's family who traveled the furthest of all of us to be here today at the new Legion on Orr Street immediately following this ceremony. Sergeant at Arms, please take the salute.
Very special moment when I saw it for the first time, and it was just like talking to my mother when she was a young woman. It was very strange. It was a good feeling because I didn't know her when she was young, but I knew about her story, and it was really great to see that at that special spot. When we grew up, we didn't hear the stories. We didn't know very much about it. Fortunately, they had written a book about our parents, so we at home we knew the story because we had read the book. But they didn't tell us much. Having a statue that has the story behind it, and I think my mother had been so proud to have the statue there. Although she was a very modest woman, she didn't want to brag about what she had done because it was her job, she said. It was a job I had. 5 years in her life that she and my father maybe had together, and they could talk about it together. And when it was over, it was over. This is the bag where my mother kept her ID papers. And she always had to wear them in her belt together with her uniform when she was at work, because if the ship got torpedoed and they drowned, they had to have their ID papers on. So she knew the whole time that it could be her last time on board. So, and this is the certificate, wireless officer certificate that she got in 1941 when she had graduated from the course before she went on board in June 1941. I think it was around 30 crossings over the Atlantic. Then the King of Norway, King Haakon, he came on board actually on the ship, the Mossdale, and some of the officers were decorated with this medal. My father, my mother, and some other of the officers on board, because they had crossed around 30 times. But after that, she crossed 48, so 78 altogether. I think it's very important that all young people who grow up, they can understand that they can do anything they want to do. They just have the passion for it. And many people today have said that they walk down and they say hello to my mother, and it's amazing to hear those stories.